YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show, exclusively here on acallforanuprising.com. I wanted to do this video because more and more in today's society, we're seeing more celebrities pretend and act as if they're one of us. They left the secret cabal in Hollywood. They're exposing the secret cabal in Hollywood. They're no longer a part of it. They found God. These are all things that they're using to lure people into believing these wolves in sheep's clothing, so to speak. Now, we see it with a lot of people like Kanye West who suddenly become Christians and suddenly start preaching the word, but they're obviously misleading people in so many different ways. But I want to make it clear with this video that you don't leave the fraternal orders. There is no way out once you sign up. People will be like, well, you could get in and then, they can be saved. Who are you to say that they can't find God? Well, I'm not saying that there's no chance of them finding God. I'm saying that there's no chance of them turning on these secret societies and living to tell about it. Because none of these people who come out and then suddenly start saying, Hollywood is filled with all these Satanists, are doing it because they're breaking free. They're doing it so that they can herd you and lure you in different ways. Because the secret societies, the Freemasons, will kill you. This is part of their fraternal oath that they take. We've seen celebrities who have been offed before. A lot of celebrities who get offed sometimes are trying to break away. Some think even people like Robin Williams were finally trying to break free from it, and then were killed because you're not allowed to break free from it. Now, I don't know for a fact if Robin Williams was one of them, but we all know Robin Williams did not die of a suicide. If he did, it was an assisted shove down the stairwell, if you catch my drift. So, Kanye West, Cat Williams, we see a lot of these guys pretend that they're suddenly waking up to everything that's going on. They've suddenly turned on them, and this gets them a lot of support and followers. Then you watch the ideologies that these people start teaching, right? We see Kanye West with his warmed down version of Christianity. We see really him openly mocking Jesus Christ, walking on water, doing all these blasphemous things right in front of our faces. But this is what would really happen to people like Kanye West. You ever heard of Mozart? I'm sure you have. You might have heard one of his songs in passing. At some point in your life, I guarantee you've heard something of Mozart. Now, obviously, I'm sure the majority of you have, but some of you might be younger, you might be a teenager, you might never heard of Mozart. This is like a song from Mozart that you probably have heard. So if you didn't know, Mozart was a famous Freemason, openly. In fact, so openly that you actually find Wikipedia of Mozart and Freemasonry, where it says that for the last 7 years of his life, Mozart was a Mason. The Masonic order played an important role in his life and work. Mozart was admitted an apprentice to the Viennese Masonic Lodge on the 14th of December, 1784. And then you can go through the Masonic ideologies, how a lot of his music was Freemasonic. The music of Freemasons contained musical phrases and forms that held specific semiotic meanings. For example, the Masonic initiation ceremony began with the candidate knocking 3 times at a door to ask admittance. This is expressed musically as a dotted figure. So this is just an example of how they started coding music with all of the, witchcraft in a sense. Because Freemasonry, again, at the end of the day, when they talk about the craft of Freemasonry, they're talking about sorcery, witchcraft, okay, satanic worship. So this is when they started indoctrinating it, even in classical music. So he started writing his music, putting in a lot of these Freemasonic codes in the music. But what you probably don't know, if you didn't know that about Mozart, is that he had a very mysterious death. And how convenient when you look at Mozart towards the end of his life, after all these years in Freemasonry, that Mozart's personal commitment to Masonic ideology started to shift. In fact, it is noted that Mozart was starting to openly expose Freemasonry. He was going to be excommunicated from Freemasonry because he was giving away a lot of the secrets of the Masonic order, which is why you don't see any of these celebrities openly talk about Freemasonry. They will kill you. I can't emphasize that enough. Most of them have handlers. So most of the tweets and most of the Instagram posts they put out are actually monitored before they go out. They wouldn't allow them to put something like that out. And even if it went out for 5 to 10 minutes, you would never see this person again if they were exposing the Masonic fraternal order. So what ended up happening to Mozart was starting to drift away because he wasn't agreeing with Masonic ideology. He was starting to shift his perspective on things. And conveniently, Mozart suffered from a very sudden death. Now, of course, there's going to be fake stuff out there on what Mozart died from, but you can even find on the government website this quote: "The rumor that Mozart was poisoned," because the word is that he was really poisoned. The rumor that Mozart was poisoned followed shortly after his death on the 5th day of December, 1791, at the age of 35, and has survived to this day. The alleged culprits were his physician and Mozart's Freemason lodge. Okay? And that is the truth of the matter, because you can connect the dots very easily. And while they'll say it's something along the lines of a liver failure, a kidney failure, internal bleeding, Mozart was poisoned. He was poisoned by his doctor who was a member of his Masonic lodge, for giving away too many details. And what happened after that even shows us more proof that Mozart was poisoned? You ever see the famous painting of Mozart and his funeral? I'm sure some of you have seen it and didn't know what it was. Mozart's funeral, or you see a dog following Mozart's coffin. It's a famous picture. It's on the screen right now. What this is emphasizing is a lot more than what most people out there think. They're like, oh, that's sad that nobody attended Mozart's funeral. Nobody attended Mozart's funeral because Mozart betrayed the Freemasons. So all of his friends did not attend. In fact, his own wife was not allowed to attend, because this was the Freemasons' way of saying, if you turn on us, this is a perfect example. We don't care if you're famous like Mozart is. We don't care if you're 35 years old or you're 75. We'll make your death look like an accident, and we will kill you if you try to betray us. So it's a famous painting that they painted of a dog following the coffin. Nobody attended it, and they claim that he had a pauper's funeral, but in some of the books and movies out there, like Amadeus, they try to pretend like, oh, he didn't really have a pauper's funeral. They literally threw Mozart's body in an open grave and threw dirt on top. They told his wife, do not attend. You are not allowed to attend. Nobody will attend. We're going to make an example of Mozart, because Mozart decided that he was going to betray the fraternal order, and nobody is above the fraternal order. When you take an oath to these secret societies, it is a blood oath. People think that that's a joke, as if, one of these things we see in a movie, right? Let's take a blood oath on a Coke can and give each other AIDS. No, I'm kidding. But you ever see these movies where they do a blood oath and somebody will cut themselves and they're like, now we have an oath to each other. These oaths that the Masons take, you cannot get out. And if you try to get out and you get to a certain degree and you just start not showing up at the lodges, they will gang stalk you. That is a fact. And if you start flapping your gums about what they teach, or you try to give some of your books away to other people, they will kill you. In fact, Freemasons are notorious. You may have been to a funeral where you'll see some of these people show up and you'll be like, who are those guys in the weird hats? Because Freemasons show up at whatever member of their local lodge dies, they show up there. They don't show up there necessarily because they're friends, but yes, obviously they're going to have a friendship with them. They show up there to collect. They collect all the Masonic books. That's what they do. I'm not kidding. Okay? This is 100% factual. The Freemasons, if there is a member of a lodge who dies, the Masons show up at the funeral. They pretend that they're paying honor to a brother. They're really there to collect. They take all their Masonic stuff out of their home. Their family members give them that's part of the fraternal contract that they sign. So none of the books end up left behind so that people can't find their teachings. That's right. Look, with the internet, it's exposed Freemasonry. Okay, because the internet's very hard to contain, obviously, unless, of course, you're me, which seems to be pretty easy for them to attain and shut down. But all kidding aside, this stuff has gotten out. But you don't see many copies of these books. You won't find them in libraries. You'll have to hunt them down. You can probably find them on eBay and other places now. But back in the day, and still to this day, they do go and they collect whatever's left behind from the Masons. So that means any type of Masonic rings, any type of books specifically, and teachings of Albert Pike. So this is the famous story of Mozart that no one ever talks about. Everybody knows Mozart. Everybody's probably seen or read about Amadeus. And, you've heard the songs. You even heard the song Rock Me, Amadeus, right? Of course, this is Masons who are using, Mozart as an example. They love to flaunt Mozart because they killed Mozart. And it's their way of saying, look, anybody at any time we could take out and will take out. The order comes above everything else. Rules don't apply to us. We will kill. And as you can read all over the place, if you actually do a deep dive, Mozart Freemasonry, they actually have a Wikipedia to talk about his affiliation, his music. It's all coded in Freemasonry. And then, of course, if you start reading more on it, you'll see that towards the end of his life, Mozart was getting excommunicated from Freemasonry. He was threatening excommunication. He was against a lot of the Masonic ideology. He started to turn on it. And of course, he conveniently died mysteriously of poisoning. And then you'll find all these stories about, it wasn't really poison. Even the government website tries to spin it. A government website, a .gov website. The rumor that Mozart was poisoned followed shortly after his death at the age of 35 by the culprits are supposedly his physician and a Freemason lodge. But no, we don't know if that's really true or not. He had kidney disease, chronic kidney disease at the age of 35. I mean, I would believe he had chronic kidney disease at 35 if he got the COVID-19 vaccine, maybe. Somebody was sneaking mRNA inside of his body. But other than that, obviously the funeral's another thing to just take out of that. Because why would there be a famous painting of Mozart's funeral and why wouldn't people be there? You're telling me people wouldn't be there? There's celebrities who die now, no humans even know them, and they try to show up at their funeral because they idol worship. Mozart was very, very famous and very, very influential with his music. So the fact that nobody was at Mozart's funeral just shows you. It shows you that they weren't allowing anyone there, and they in fact wanted that painting to become famous of just a dog. Mozart died with just his dog by his side. He died a pauper's death and was thrown in a grave because he couldn't afford it. Well, the Masons saw to it that he was thrown in a grave in a pauper's death. And there, back then there ain't no autopsies, okay? You die of poison, you die of poison. So Mozart's a perfect example. I wanted to do a video. For anybody out there that thinks that any of these people who suddenly emerged because they've got a change of heart, it doesn't mean that some of these people can't find God. But they're going to be finding God on their own, inside of their hearts. They're not going to be out there flaunting that they're Christian all of a sudden and then exposing all of this stuff. Okay, you don't hear any of these people ever talk about Freemasonry, but they, then they claim to find God because they're being put there because they want to make sure that they herd and lure the conservatives or the Christians out there. They don't want them waking up to all of this stuff that's going on. So again, none of these people who come out openly remain famous and are still famous after exposing them. They're only there by design. And you'll never hear them exposing Freemasonry ever because they wouldn't live to tell about it. I thank everybody for being here on the website. I hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you as always and your families.